And do you have something good to tell me today? It could be something small, it could be something big and really exciting, but let's spread the goodness today. Got a text here saying we are so happy as the Whitsunday Suicide Prevention Network to have donated time for some big visitors to our charity event, which is on Saturday. And among the guest speakers, Brant Webb, the Beaconsfield miner, Spider Everett and Shane Webkey. Wow, that's a great event. That's happening on Saturday, the 13th of July at 5:30. Thank you very much for your text and thanks for sharing the goodness. If you've got something good to tell me, call through 1300 630 222 or SMS 0487 993 222.
Your plants might be resting for winter, but there's still lots of gardening to think about, and you'll find loads of inspiration in Gardening Australia magazine. There's advice on shade-loving natives, caring for citrus, design basics and small-scale gardening. Learn to ID butterflies in your garden, and Sophie Thompson explains why you need to love your soil. Look for the butterfly on the cover from newsagents and abcmagazines.com.au.
And the new financial year is underway, and I don't know about you, but I have found myself constantly thinking about money. Even on mornings lately, there's been a lot of discussion about tax and changing payments and all those sorts of things. Let's find out more about psychology when it comes to finances and how to be more money mind-wise. Psychology expert Dr. Jo Lukens joins me now. Good morning.
Good morning, Susan.
What sort of biases, cognitive biases, and are there when we're talking about important financial decision making?
Yeah, our biases in relation to finances are obviously incredibly important because of what an important role finance plays in all of our lives. So we know that for humans that we are all prone to bias, and that's not because that's a flaw in us. It's just simply the fact that we've got so much information coming in. Our brain makes little shortcuts. And certainly if you're someone who thinks that you are immune to biases, then you are actually succumbing to the number one bias, which is that everyone else is more biased than I am. But obviously when it comes to what's happening to us in terms of our finances, these are important things to think about and talk about because it can impact the financial decisions that we make. If we're doing things like having investments and so forth, sometimes we hold on to them for too long or a little bit rash in our thinking, or sometimes we follow the crowd with risky decision making. So just knowing about this is a really important topic for us to be talking about.
So give us a bit of an example of a common cognitive bias that affects maybe like investors.
Yes. So this is going to make sense to a lot of people. We don't like losing money. So we have this loss aversion, at the risk of stating the obvious. We have this thing that's called loss aversion, which is where we tend to feel the pain of financial loss more strongly than the pleasure of the equivalent financial gain. So losing $20 hurts more than the equivalent gain of gaining $20. What that means is that sometimes because of the pain of the loss, we might hold on to an investment for longer than we need to or longer than we're financially advised to, hoping to break even, hoping to come back. Sometimes this explains some gambling behaviour as well. We're talking about investments today, but it happens with gambling as well. So sometimes we can make overly cautious decisions to avoid that particular loss.
So overconfidence bias, what is that and how does that affect financial decision making?
Okay, so this is going in the other direction. So sometimes we can feel so confident that we know something or it's familiar to us. And I won't say the brand, but I know that there was a restaurant chain that went on the stock market just recently, and I heard people talking about it. And because it's somewhere that they go and somewhere that they eat, they went, everyone must go here and this is going to be a winner and all those sorts of things. So sometimes we don't look at the facts behind all of the decisions that we might make, and we might overly rely on the stories we tell ourselves, the familiarity that we have with it. So we know that when we have that overconfidence, we may tend to be more risky than perhaps would be prudent to do.
You're hearing from psychology expert Dr. Jo Lukens. We're talking about money, mind-wise things today. How does that herd mentality influence those investment decisions? Things feel safer when
they
you're in
do
a
feel
group.
safer, and we feel like everyone is on the same bandwagon or following the herd, however we want to phrase it. And this is a phrase we often talk about in our household because my husband works in finance and so forth. So he's often talking about not necessarily, this is not financial advice, by the way, but you know, advice. Definitely my financial advice is worth what everyone's just paid for it, which is nothing. There is a tendency, and often you see this in finance, is that by the time everyone's talking about it, it's probably
It's
too
too
late.
late.
And whether it's because people are buying or people are selling. So it's one of these areas where you want to get as sound financial advice as you can around this decision making, which doesn't always have any guarantees.
Yes, indeed. So if we understand some of our biases, we can make better decisions?
Yeah, we can. So it's being informed. And I guess some people will talk about, and I know I've seen this with people when they go and see a financial advisor, they'll do like profiles of them. So they'll go, do you tend to be risk adverse, as in you don't like to make those decisions? And that's okay as long as you know the impact that's potentially going to have on your financial position. Or if you know that you are riskier, then knowing that there might be times that you might need to stop and take a breath and so forth. As with everything, and particularly when it comes to our biases, the more self-aware we are about where we have blind spots, if you like, really can help us to make those sorts of decisions. So if you are someone who's rash in your decision making, then when it comes to financial things, you might want to inhale, exhale, take a pause and get some more information. And by the same token, if you're risk averse, you might want to find out ways to expedite that process if that's in line with your goals.
So any positive aspects to these cognitive biases, especially when it comes to money?
Yes. So I guess if we are risk averse, then perhaps it maybe potentially saves us from going into some risky situations, and maybe in other areas it gives us courage. But we do know, I think again, it's that reminder that humans do have these biases. It's part of what makes us human.
Yeah.
Some of our biases we know about, and other ones are these unconscious bias that we talk about that influence us, but we don't necessarily pay attention. So being mind-wise is always a good way to start.
Yeah, I think that I like the idea of having a breath or sleeping on a decision when it comes to a big choice like
Absolutely.
that. Psychology expert Dr. Jo Lukens, thank you very much for that. And now, do you have something good to tell me? I'm asking people to share some goodness today.
You are, and I guess I walked from my car today hearing some of the stories and thought about the blue sky and how lovely the surrounds are. But I guess to reinforce this conversation that you're having with listeners is not only do we get joy from noticing the good things that are happening to us, but hearing the good news for others is also a feel-good factor. So if you're enjoying hearing the stories of others' joy, then you're also benefiting from it.
What a psychological answer, Dr. Jo. Thank you.
Wasn't it?
Thank you very much for joining me today to share about money, mind-wise, and also about positivity, mind-wise. Thank you very much for your time today.